Hello and welcome to Ascending Order with me, Basil Valentine. Today, Wednesday, the 24th of September 2025. We are living through historic times. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Totally unprecedented events unfolding before our eyes on a daily basis. That's partly why we call the station Unprecedented TV for unprecedented times. And today I've got a major scoop for you, direct live from the Global Humanitarian Flotilla on its way to Gaza to deliver much needed aid. Last night, in case you didn't know, it was attacked by drones dropping hydrogen sulfide gas bombs and other types of incendiary directly onto the decks. First, let's hear from Eric Warsaw, who was on board the veterans boat. And then in just a minute's time, I'll be joined by Dr. Frank Romano, live from the Spectre, one of the other boats that was attacked last night. First of all, here's Eric Warsaw.
Hello, my name is Titus with the Department of State.
That wasn't him. I do apologize for that. Wrong clip. Greg Stoker is aboard the veterans boat, and you can see him here.
Hey y'all, Greg here aboard the veteran boat attached to the Global Flotilla. Our boat was assailed by a quadcopter and they dropped a little popper on deck. A couple boats experienced that as well. And also our VHF radio was hijacked by adversarial comms, and they started playing ABBA. So this is the initiation of the psychological operations that we had mentioned previously. They're beginning off the coast of Crete. Luckily, we have live stream footage that gets stored in a backup. Unfortunately, this was out of frame, but you see we noticed the quadcopter drone run back. Yeah, somewhat startling. Yeah, so I'm going to park my head here so I cover it up, whichever VHF channel we use, but we've been dealing with this all night. Yeah, so that was ABBA. ABBA's from Sweden. Obviously, their weird obsession with Greta Thunberg being on the flotilla may have something to do with it, but we're probably going to be expecting this every night going forward. To just break everyone down psychologically. This is what they are. There's no injuries. Everyone's fine. These are just psychological operations. And they're probably going to increase in intensity and frequency from here on out every time the sun sets. So we appreciate your attention to this matter. Pressure your governments, please, to protect the flotilla, and we will not be deterred. So we're just going to keep on sailing, and they're going to keep doing what they're going to keep doing, and history will be our judge.
Indeed it will, but I think we need judgments before history. History is a long time in the future. Captain Josephine Guilbeault is one of the veterans who resigned from the US forces in protest at the collaboration with the genocide. She called the State Department to try and get them to act to protect the American veterans on board that particular boat that was attacked last night. And she was brushed off in rather summary fashion by the official who spoke to her, as we can hear now.
Hello, my name is Titus with the Department of State's Overseas Citizen Services. How may I help you?
Hi, my name is Josephine Guilbeault. I'm a 17-year Army veteran and former intelligence officer, and I'm calling to report that Israel just attacked United States military veterans on the Global Flotilla, sailing to Gaza to deliver humanitarian aid such as baby formula, water, etc. And I need to know...
You need to contact the U.S. Embassy in the country they were located in for assistance with that.
There is nothing that Mike Huckabee can do for the fact that Israel is bombing U.S. citizens. We need the Department of State to move into action.
You would have to contact the U.S. Embassy.
What is the U.S. Embassy going to do inside of Israel to stop them from killing U.S. veterans? I don't need more information. I need the U.S. Department of State to call Israel and tell them not to bomb U.S. veterans. Excuse me, what's your name again? What's your name?
That's how you get treated by your own foreign office if you stray off the reservation when it comes to Israel. Mandela Mandela, grandson of Nelson, is also aboard the flotilla, and he delivered this summary of events this morning.
Last night we had over 17 drones hovering above the Global Flotilla boats with stun grenades that were dropped on several of our boats. We will not be intimidated by apartheid Israel. This only unites us and ensures that we continue to set sail as we focus on our mission on breaking the blockade and ending the siege. Ours is to bring the much needed aid to the Palestinians in Gaza. We continue to remain a non-violent mission which seeks to break the blockade and end the siege.
That was Mandela Mandela this morning. Now I'm delighted to say I'm joined direct and live from one of the boats using Starlink by the activist, lawyer and author, Dr. Frank Romano. Frank, welcome to the program. It's great that you can join us. I believe the boat you're on board was one of those attacked last night, Frank. Do please tell us all about it. I hope nobody was injured.
Yes, Basil, thanks for having me back with you. It's always a pleasure. Yes, last night around midnight, we heard a loud explosion outside the door. And so in the water, there was an explosion right next to the boat. And then right after that, we heard, large thuds on the top deck above us. And right after that, I didn't know what was going on at the time. The captain came down and says, "Okay, get out of the back." I was in the back actually sleeping outside. And he said, "Get from outside, inside, get on your life preserver and your gas mask." And so what it turned out, just as you had said in your introduction, Basil, one of our experts had said it was that they were hydrogen sulfide bombs. And what, more specifically, this is a very dangerous gas. It's very flammable. And if it's, if there's low exposure, there's burning, itching. It can really create lots of problems in the throat and inhalation in the lungs. But overexposure, longer exposure, can have far more dangerous consequences, such as respiratory distress, fluid in the lungs, loss of consciousness, and even heart failure. It could kill you. And so the crew members, when we were sitting there underneath in the sort of the salon area with our life preservers on, our gas masks, we're going up and taking these large gas bombs, steaming gas bombs, covering them and throwing them over the side. Fortunately, they didn't get injured because all they had to do was touch it and or inhale it. They could have a big problem. And then they came down and reported it to us after that. Basil, are you hearing me? Maybe.
Yeah, I can hear you fine, Frank. It
Okay.
sounds like a very unpleasant incident. Are you expecting more of the same tonight? We also heard from one of the other boats that their radio is being jammed, bizarrely with the Israelis playing ABBA because they're obsessed with Greta Thunberg. A sort of strange psychological tactic being employed. But I suppose it's all part of a wider plan to intimidate you and try and stop you from getting to the coast of Gaza, of course.
Basil, let's reflect upon what happened in Tunisia. In Tunis Harbor, I was there. It was only 100 meters away in the sailboat I was on, where the Alma was bombed with an incendiary bomb, and so was the family. And it got so close to the diesel storage that it could have blown up the whole boat. And this is all psychological. I'm not sure if really the incendiary device planned to blow up the boat, but it was all psychological warfare, just like the veterans boat announcer said. We expect a lot of us that are familiar with Israeli tactics expect these type of psychological warfare elements, devices, strategies that they use, and so it's really almost in a way for us, almost a game in a way that they are trying to play with our minds. But what they do, they don't. I think they don't analyze it very deeply because it really has an opposite effect. It entrenches us more in our motivation to get to Gaza. It does the opposite. There are some younger activists that have not experienced Israeli tactics before, or psychological warfare, that might be a bit intimidated. But we calm them down and say no. For instance, when I asked the captain, did he need my help? He was very busy. He had the crew to do it, so I just basically went to sleep. It just emboldens us, empowers us to move forward. Our goal really is to break that siege, bring in humanitarian aid, but also, Basil, they did jam our device, and we heard ABBA over it. That's true, and maybe it has something to do with the fact Greta Thunberg is on board because it's a Swedish music group. Who knows? But they're not getting to us. But I don't expect, contrary to what the other activists said on the veterans boat, I don't expect this to happen every night. I think they're going to choose certain nights, and they're going to choose different strategies, different devices. It's true, that they probably might up the ante when we get closer to try to dissuade, try to deter some boats from continuing. But I wanted to announce something, if you want, later or whenever you'd like, Basil, that there was a compromise. I spoke to Jael about it, compromise offered by the Israeli government that you may or may not know about.
Yeah, we don't know about that, Frank, at all. It hasn't made the news wires in Europe or the United States yet. I'm very keen to hear about it. But first of all, you're in international waters, and therefore, I mean, I don't know which flag you're flying on your boat, but technically, if you're flying a US flag, then the boat is designated as sovereign US property. Any attack on any vessel in international waters represents an act of piracy or terrorism or attempted murder, or it's a criminal offense. Nobody can just go around willy-nilly attacking internationally flagged boats in international waters with impunity. But of course, we all know that the Israelis have zero respect for international law. So what is the situation? Can you clarify, and are you able to get any consulate help?
To answer your first question, we're flying the Spanish flag, and others I know are flying the UK flag and different flags. I'm not sure if any of the boats are flying a US flag, because you have to get the authorization from the US authorities to fly it. And then it's true. For instance, we're flying the Spanish flag. If any attack on us, whether we're Spanish citizens or not, is a direct attack and can be considered an attack against the Spanish government. Not quite as the same as if we were, for instance, a Spanish naval vessel, but still, it has implication. But you mentioned, Basil, that we're in international water. And under Article 51 of the UN Charter, Israel would have the right in international waters, out of its jurisdiction, to attack and occupy and confiscate a boat if that boat was engaged in piracy or drug trade or other things, or actually trading people, like people piracy type of thing, slave trade. None of those elements are here. They know clearly that we're a nonviolent group, just bringing humanitarian aid, trying to break the siege, to do something about the genocide. And so any attack in international waters is clearly in violation of international law and that UN charter. But what is even more in violation of is a recent International Court of Justice decision, Basil. Just in the 2024, it was a temporary decision that was emitted by the International Court of Justice judges in that same case, and I'm sure we know about. It's the genocide case that South Africa brought against Israel that is still pending. But in the meantime, they have, temporary orders that they give that are binding, and one of them is Israel does not have the right to impede in the entrance of humanitarian aid into Gaza. So number one, I think that's what we are doing, and it's definitely by attacking us or trying to stop us, or even with the psychological warfare, is an attempt to stop us from bringing in humanitarian aid in violation of that order. And second, it also, since the law also states clearly, at least implies clearly, that any attempt to stop them from humanitarian aid from entering Gaza is also a violation of that ruling, which means that Israeli blockade, which is served basically for that purpose, is illegal. So what we're doing is clearly legal in international waters, and even if we go into Gaza water, that Israel claims it's protecting itself and sovereignty, but since that illegal blockade is illegal under the International Court of Justice, and we're bringing humanitarian aid, we have the right to do that as well.
Indeed, really, you should be being supported by the navies of the countries that are signatories to the 1948 Geneva Convention on Genocide. Really, there should be Royal Naval frigates and Spanish vessels, even, believe it or not, American warships should be protecting the flotilla or delivering aid directly themselves. But the world has so turned upside down morally that you don't have any naval protection at all, do you, Frank?
No, there's no protection. Now, Spain, apparently, I mean, I didn't see it, but a friend of mine who's a pretty, reliable source said, but Spain has admitted, saying that, of course, the flotilla should be protected. They are actually offering consulate support to those that, if there is an interception and we're all arrested and put in jail, those that their consuls ignore us, such as the last time, I was on the Hondulla, and the owner of the Hondulla, and I was in jail just over a month ago. The American, I'm French American. The American consul did not show up, and did not show up, and not comply with its own laws to represent Americans that were in the Hondulla, including myself. But fortunately, I'm a French citizen, and the French consulate showed up and asked if I was right, if I was okay, and then connected with family for me and did other things, and then we had our lawyers. But then Spain has also said in that decision it'll offer consular support, but it also said we will also try and defend the flotilla. And I'm not sure what it means by that. How else could a government defend us by direct threats of not sending arms? That's one way, but a direct way, as you suggested, to me, which is, I think they're probably under logical humanitarian principles, is their absolute humanitarian and responsibility to protect the flotilla. That is to say, there are 44 countries involved. Activists are members of 44 countries. Some of those countries could send their naval forces, and certainly NATO forces are not far away to protect the flotilla that is legally doing what it's doing. I mean, you're right. It's upside down with international law, upside down with what's right, and upside down when it comes to humanitarian principles.
We all know that humanitarian principles don't apply to the Palestinians because the Israelis do not regard them as human beings. I saw a report that Turkey and Egypt are holding joint naval exercises in the waters between them, directly where you're sailing to, and that this is a sort of an X factor, could turn into a catalyst for some kind of confrontation if large numbers of Israeli vessels start intercepting the flotilla with Turkish and Egyptian warships in the area. We all know that Erdogan is all mouth and trousers, to use the time-honored English slang expression. And Sisi's worse than that. He's in the he's firmly in the Americans' pocket because he needs their support financially, militarily, to maintain his hold on power, which is the only thing that's really of any interest to him. But nevertheless, are you aware of the fact that these Turkish and Egyptian navies will be holding joint exercises right where you're heading in about 2 or 3 days' time?
Yes, and to answer also your question, I'm not sure if I answered it. We should be arriving in Gaza in 6 to 7 days, and I am aware of these naval exercises by Turkey and Egypt, but I was told it was more on the periphery, not necessarily exactly where we're going. But I'm not sure exactly if they've even made it public exactly where these exercises are going to take place. But I really doubt that neither Turkey, because like you say, all mouth and trousers, all lip, and we call it United States a lot, lip service, playing lip service, especially when it comes to Mr. Sisi. You know, well, of course, Mr. Erdogan is pretty much too. And remember when we were in Istanbul, ready to go to Gaza, he was the one who a strong fleet and big cargo vessel full of Mediterranean aid to go to Gaza. He stopped it and only gave in after 150 days to having Marmara people in Istanbul. You know, he talks almost daily against Israel, but really doesn't do much specifically to pressure Israel to stop sending arms to really, and I don't think he's going to do much specifically to pressure Israel to not attack the flotilla. And I also was told that people on the dock, and these are my friends from Avi Marmara, engaged in this sit-in. And it went for 150 days, and finally Mr. Erdogan allowed the conscience to go. And you know what happened to the conscience in Malta? And now it's back in Istanbul, and they say it's preparing to leave again, that Erdogan might have been given the green light. But a lot of this is all politics, because there were people at the port in Istanbul saying they noted that there were Israeli ships there. So while Erdogan had said specifically he's stopping all commercial activities with Israel, we see that that's not quite true. So I can't count on Egypt or Turkey really to jump in here, because as you say, if they were ever to even protect us a little bit and assure us safe passage to Gaza, which really is their UN principles and they're members of the UN, then that would probably ignite a battle, and probably is something they don't want to do, especially since Sisi is in the pocket of the U.S. and depends so financially on Israel and the United States. So I don't depend upon that at all. But I'm hoping, we are still hoping at the end of the day that some of these NATO countries, like it could be Israel, could be Italy or Spain. I don't think we can count on Greece to jump in there and give us some type of protection. I think that's the least they could do according to international law and according to humanitarian principles. But again, like you say, everything's so topsy-turvy that before the eyes of the world, we're seeing, as you know, and you've said so many times, Basil, and described it so effectively, there's an absolute massacre, genocide going on in Gaza before our eyes, and the world is doing almost nothing to prevent it.
Yes, lots of fine words at the United Nations this week. The president of Slovenia delivering one of the most powerful speeches. You said that the Israelis are offering a compromise. That's very unlike them, Frank. Normally, particularly since I believe you've been designated as terrorists, I would have thought the most likely outcome is that they want to board all the boats with their commandos in the way that the handler was a few weeks ago, and take you all off to a dungeon. Simple as that. But the optics of that were going to look very, very bad. It's all right, one vessel, which was very cruelly derided as Greta Thunberg's selfie yacht, but 50 boats with participants from 44 countries is going to create a much bigger diplomatic incident and media firestorm if they try and basically act like pirates and board all the boats in international waters. That's not, the optics of that are going to look very bad. Not that they really seem to care. So what's the compromise, Frank?
Yes, and the compromise is just, I think it was yesterday in the evening, the leaders of the Global Flotilla, who I work very closely with and are my friends, sent out a message to us saying that Israel has offered that to boats to arrive in Ashkelon harbor. And Ashkelon is a little bit. Ashdod is where almost all the Freedom Flotilla boats, such as the Magdalene and the Hondola, are processed. That's where they take us after we're intercepted, process us, and arrest us, and then take us to prison. And that's a while farther north, but between Gaza-Israeli border and Ashkelon. And Ashkelon port, they said you can come in. They're offering, Israel government is offering the global Samud Flotilla that it will allow, well, it didn't say passage, but it said it will allow you to dock your and distribute the humanitarian aid to Israeli officials, who will then assure, obviously, that those goods, food, water, medication, and baby formula and things like that, are distributed to the Gazan Palestinians. And ownership of the Global Samud Flotilla rejected the offer, saying we don't, since Israel is in full genocidal, behavior with respect to there's no guarantee that that food will ever get to them. We don't trust it get to them, and that was simply a response. Now, my addition to that is it's contradicting themselves, like you referred to. They first of all said, "We're not allowing you to go into Gazan waters, our legal, quote unquote, legal blockade." So if they don't allow us to do that, how can they allow us to take it even further and even in one of their ports and unload our humanitarian aid? So that's clearly contradictory. They didn't say either that they will allow a safe passage into the Ashkelon port where we would distribute the goods to the Israeli authorities, who will in turn distribute to Gaza. They didn't say anything about safe passage. They didn't say how they were going to treat us. It was just something like that, which was that offer to allow us to dock and unload our goods was completely rejected the global flotilla ownership, and I totally support that rejection.
Yes, as you say, it's a contradiction because you're all supposed to be dangerous terrorists, aren't you, Frank? And it's interesting that they left out the bit about what they're going to do with you. Are they going to chuck you in a dungeon if you agree to this compromise, or are you all going to be given a few nights in a Tel Aviv beachfront hotel before being deported? So anyway, that's not going to happen. You're going to keep going. We do appreciate you joining us, Frank, under what are obviously difficult positions. Can you tell us before you go where you are now and what you expect to happen over the next 2 or 3 days?
Yeah, and just to add very quickly to what you just said, last time I was there in prison after the Hondola was intercepted, they threatened a 3-year prison sentence because it will be the 3rd time I'll be in Israeli prison. And Ben Gavir has threatened also to say he's treat us like he had before. They treat us like terrorists, and be in the terrorist dungeons anyway. So where we are now, Basil, I can't give you the precise location, of course, but we're, people can track it. We're moving outside of Crete, and all together, all 51 plus boats, the Greek boats are joining us now, and we really feel that we have been since we left Barcelona. Actually, been on high alert, expecting the bureau struggle, which was also we may not get out of port, and then we're expecting also the psychological warfare, which we're getting now, which the Tunis port. So I think this is going to happen. Probably not It will be at night because there are a few people witnessing things that they do with their nighttime drones. But as we get close to the orange region, we call it the orange sector, the danger zone where the Israeli authorities have, historically intercepted the Freedom Flotilla boats, which we expect they might try to intercept us. We hopefully by then we'll have some type of protection, and hopefully we'll get some boats into Gaza. But we really think, though, that this psychological warfare will continue. They might up the ante. I mean, you say they act with impunity. They could ram a boat. They've done it before. They've rammed the Freedom Flotilla boat and put it out of order that it had to go to a port for repairs. It could ram our boats or some of the boats. It could bomb them with incendiary devices like in the Tunis port, or as the Conscience was bombed, to try to take out a generator or to incapacitate the boat. And it could, as we get really close, say you're in a war zone, you're working for Hamas, it could theoretically sink a boat. It could bomb us. They're doing it all. We don't think that's going to happen, Basil. We hope not. But we're willing to take that risk because we're thinking, well, this is direct action. The world's doing nothing about the genocide and media groups as yourself. Taking this to the world, hopefully we'll have a slam campaign above the United States, France, I'm from, will pressure the government providing weapons. But basically, Basil, we expect the ante to be raised, perhaps not nightly, but we're prepared for anything. We're training every day for this, and we're going to take these risks for what we think is the right thing to do.
It is indeed the right thing to do, Frank. And viewers and listeners, I do hope you appreciate, obviously, the line there to Frank in the Mediterranean. Not fantastic, but well worth persevering with that fascinating interview. Frank, I'll speak to you again in a couple of days. Hopefully, you'll still be online at the beginning of next week. I take my hat off to you and everybody else on the flotilla, and Godspeed to you all.
Thank you, Basil, and thank you for your work. It's like 100% is what we're doing, because if the word doesn't get out, unfortunately, what we're doing would have almost no resonance anywhere. So thank you, Basil. Keep it going, and I'll definitely be available within the limits of our Wi-Fi, which is working very well now. So yes, in 2 days, 1 day, I'll try to make myself available for you, Basil. Good work going, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Frank. There he goes. I must admit, I'm mildly envious. It must be very exciting out there, but death is a distinct possibility. I think the Israelis wouldn't mind getting rid of Greta Thunberg in particular. Hello, I'm Basil Valentine, and this is Unprecedented TV, unfiltered, uncensored, unprecedented, the home of free speech here on the internet. Do please like and subscribe over at YouTube. Follow us on X, and remember, I'm on air every day, Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. for Ascending Order, your daily news edit with live guests and all the genuinely most important stories from around the world. Don't allow yourself to be propagandized by the corporate media. Forget the world at one on Radio 4. Join me, Basil Valentine, instead, 1 p.m. on X, Monday to Friday, also on YouTube. And I'll see you all very soon. There you go. Thank you very much, Basil. As you heard there, Jack, I said, don't be propagandized because that's what we get from the corporate media 99% of the time. We're trying to do something different here on Unprecedented TV. Freedom of speech, uncensored, unfiltered. Basically, as far as I'm concerned, you either believe in freedom of speech or you don't. It's a binary state of affairs. In this country, we always had perfectly adequate laws to deal with things like conspiracy to murder, or, of course, antisocial behavior like shouting fire in a theater. But it seems these days, in spite of claims to the contrary by Keir Starmer, that the limits of free speech in Britain are being constantly eroded, and dare I say, will be only the more so with the introduction of digital ID, should that nightmare ever come to pass. Jack?
Yes, no, I completely agree. I do think that obviously there has been a unprecedented crackdown on the protests that I've seen across the country over the last few months, from the 20th of July when I first started reporting on these asylum hotel protests. You know, I've seen the police just get a lot more heavy-handed with the protesters, and I do think this is because this has been a direct order from Keir Starmer, most likely, or from somebody high up in the government, because they don't like that people are exercising their free speech to say that, hey, you, the Starmer regime, have brought in all of these illegal migrants, aka asylum seekers, supposedly, and now our children are at threat. Obviously, Hadash Kabatu, the man who sexually assaulted the 14-year-old girl in Epping from the Bell Hotel, just sentenced to 12 months just the other day, whereas Lucy Connolly sentenced around 34 for hurty words on Twitter. So, as I said, that is the state of the country right now, as you're right. You know, free speech is being policed far more harshly than actual real criminal offences committed by illegal aliens.
Yeah, very good point. Now, the whole asylum system, as we know, is, well, abused is the only way to put it, because a lot of the people in the migrant hotels are from countries like Turkey and Albania, both of which are applying to join the European Union. Ironically, both holiday destinations for Brits. In fact, I've got a very good friend who has done the opposite. He has two young daughters. His wife is Albanian, and they've moved to Albania because the cost of childcare is a tiny fraction of what it is here in the UK. It's a perfectly peaceful place. There may be limited employment opportunities, but that doesn't mean you should be allowed to throw your passport in the English Channel and claim asylum. And under the ECHR arrangements, take 2-3 years to process or something, by which time, of course, often you may have melted away or everybody's forgotten about the case anyway.
Yes, no, that's a very good point. I will say I haven't seen many people who look like more Turks or Albanians myself outside the migrant hotels, but I don't doubt the statistics. And certainly, regardless of whether they're in the hotel system, they're still certainly coming over here. A lot illegally. I know Albanians have been illegally crossing the channel on small boats. I think something ridiculous like 1% of their male population came to Britain over the last few years. And of course, the Albanians are involved in they control lots of the drug cartels in London and so on and so forth. Although generally involved in more organized crime, they're less of the type to actually just stab you to death or break into your house for no reason, which is what we've seen with again an alleged asylum seeker, resident of the Britannia Hotel, just a good few weeks ago, well, a couple of months ago now, allegedly entered the home of a elderly blind lady, and her daughter, Sinead Augustus, 22, chased him out of the house when he had his hand down his pants. Is what she reported, and she's now been done for chasing him out because she got mad and allegedly had an altercation with a hotel worker at the Britannia Hotel afterwards. And she's now been remanded in custody until, I believe, the 29th of June next year, and she's already been in jail for a month or so. So the process there is the punishment. But yeah, I definitely have seen more alleged asylum seekers come from other countries such as Eritrea. I've heard a lot more of them are coming from South Sudan. I'm hearing from the boat crossings themselves, those guys specifically are getting quite violent when actually trying to cross the channel, and people from Afghanistan as well, of course. Now, the thing with these people who don't necessarily come from safe countries, we're actually not even getting the good people from those unsafe countries. A lot of the time, we're getting the criminals, the scum. Examples of this is people that we can't deport back to the Taliban because they're pedophiles, rapists, murderers, and they said, "Oh no, the Taliban will kill me if I come back." Well, yeah, because you committed an array of horrific crimes, and that's why you're fleeing. A lot of these people aren't fleeing danger in the way that we considered it. They're fleeing injustice. Sorry, they're fleeing justice itself.
I was going to say big difference, Jack. Yes. Escaping justice. And Britain is, of course, regarded as a soft touch. Now, one of the problems that lawyers defending asylum seekers say is, look, they can't work. They're not allowed to work while these claims are being processed. That's why they hang around and often end up getting into mischief. But if they were allowed to work and contribute to the economy, then the anger of local residents would be dissipated. I think that's a rather simplistic view, Jack. What do you think?
Yeah, that view is completely nonsensical. These people don't give a toss that they're around, that they're just existing. They're mad that they're raping their kids. They're mad that they're breaking into their houses. They're mad that they're stabbing their friends in the street. This is what they're concerned about. People again aren't mad that these people are just here. They're mad about their actions. They're judging them by the contents of their character. That's why people are upset that they're here. And again, this is nothing to do with not having a job. If you want to look at the recent crime numbers that have just been released. Now, this is not per capita. It's just pure, just the pure numbers of it. So it's not based on how many are in the country. The raw data, exactly. So for the numbers, I believe this is it's either sexual assaults or rapes. It might be I believe it's sexual assaults. For this last year, the numbers that have just been released, Indian nationals, that is, have been convicted for sexual assaults than anybody else. Now, obviously, this is not going to be, I said, the data per capita, because we'll have Afghanistans, Eritreans ahead of them. But obviously, Indians have been coming over here in the last few years legally. They've come as part of the Boris wave. They're working in your bars, in your restaurants, in your fast food joints, in wherever. These people have come over here legally and they're working. And just, again, by the sheer scale of them, they have now become the #1 nationality for conviction of sexual assault within the last year. And again, Indians can come here perfectly legally, and they have done so. So again, it doesn't matter whether they're working or not. Just because you get a job doesn't stop you from becoming a rapist.
Oh, and of course, this is the irony of Brexit, isn't it? The so-called take back control, whereas previously Poles, French people, Italians, lots of Spanish, particularly young people, would come to Britain to work in everything from catering and hospitality to IT, and generally assimilated very well. Very perfectly pleasant to be around. Certainly no spike in the numbers of sexual offences committed by Frenchmen or Italians, for all their image as Lotharios. Nevertheless, they know how to behave, put it that way. And the irony of Brexit, of course, is that they've stopped coming. And as you say, under Boris's visa program, have been replaced by very largely people from the subcontinent.
Yes, exactly. Obviously the concerns about specific European immigration when it came to Brexit, if you looked at this, were what were people talking about? Primarily, they were talking about the economic problems of immigration in that, these people will work for less and therefore British people can't get the more lower end jobs. So if you look at Poles, Bulgarians, Romanians, etc., these people came in and were able to take many low paying, but what would have been decent jobs for people, outside of the southeast. So in fishing industries, in factories, in all of these places, that's what people were concerned about with Eastern European migration. With Eastern European migration, they were never concerned that Eastern Europeans, like Poles, are going to go around into grooming gangs and rape their 13-year-old daughters. That was never the concern with Polish people. The concern was a purely, job, economic situation over here. But yeah, now that we are taking people from the third world, who come from cultures that are far more likely to disrespect women, to have far more likely just crime being a thing that's accepted, within the community, then obviously this is the result that we're going to get as this. And again, Boris is to blame for a lot of this. And I spoke to Dominic Cummings in January of this year, and I believe this is before he publicly said about this, but he told me that one reason why Boris did this is because he and Carrie, wanted to be accepted by the liberal lovey elites in London at their cocktail parties. He wanted to be the man that was just, he's a Tory prime minister, but he's all right. He's one of us, actually. Let's again invite him round for drinks again this evening. That's what he cared about, and he's completely sold us up the river for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary. It reminds me of the changes in immigration laws under the Blair government in the early part of this century, which saw another great inward wave of immigration. On that occasion, the idea was to permanently alter the demographics of Britain to wind up the right. I mean, extraordinary stuff, really. 2 cases of prime ministers and their administrations putting their own egotistical and demented plans before the interests of the British people. But I suppose we shouldn't be surprised, Jack.
Well, yes, and you're right. And I believe that phrase about the right there, I believe it's wanting to rub the right's nose in diversity. I think that came from Barbara Roche, who was the immigration minister first under Tony Blair. And, she was, I believe, of Jewish heritage from East London. And I think I remember, again, reading about this in The Strange Death of Europe a few years ago. Obviously, fantastic book by Douglas Murray. He said that, she was bullied for being Jewish at the time, was meant to feel not English. And therefore, because she then felt not English, she then built up this, hatred of everybody else there. It was a pure sort of ethnic animosity at the people that she felt that attacked her when she was younger. And so this was a very deliberate thing, from some people in the Blair government, again, to rub the right's nose in diversity. And there are others involved. I can't for the life of me remember the name of him right now, but he and Roche and others basically cooked the books on the immigration data in terms of saying that immigrants would be a huge boost to the economy. Literally nothing bad can ever happen. Jonathan Portes, that's right. And again, this is also in one of the early chapters of Strange Death of Europe, where they say that they literally do just completely change and fiddle about numbers to make it look as if immigration is going to be the most fantastic thing that could ever happen in this country, the biggest economic miracle. And then obviously this is just what the left and the liberals have ran with for 20 years, and this is one reason, I feel like a lot of the times people on sort of the London liberal elite are stuck in the late 90s to early 2000s, both politically and culturally as well, but that's a whole other topic. But they think that they have this secret data which us the chud public just doesn't understand. They just don't get that. We have to sacrifice a few white girls on the altar of diversity in Rotherham. But if we do that, then it's economic rocket fuel, and then this country will be fantastic. And so we just have to keep holding off on these bad bits of diversity, because otherwise the economy will completely collapse. And they think this is a secret. They think this is the secret source that only they are too intelligent to know about. But again, but they're too far stuck in their ways, and they refuse to acknowledge the fact that the evidence is so firmly, legitimately, actually against them.
What we're seeing, of course, in Britain now is a fundamental change in the demographics, which nobody ever voted for. It doesn't surprise me that Tommy Robinson, who I'm not a fan of at all, I should add, Jack, for all sorts of extremely good reasons, but nevertheless, he has touched a nerve with working class communities in Britain. Back in the day, in the mid-1970s, the largest far-right nationalist political grouping was the National Front, who achieved some extraordinary by-election and local election results in the mid-1970s, exclusively in areas of very high inward immigration, in the East End, in parts of Birmingham, in parts of the North, but really only tiny pockets where there was tremendous immigration, both from Afro-Caribbean communities, but more particularly from South Asian communities. At the time, and believe it or not, I took a keen interest in politics in my pubescence. It struck me, looking at the figures, that once that demographic change permeated into the suburbs, into a much wider part and different strata of British society, then there would inevitably be a reaction along similar lines. Now, of course, it's very easy to say, oh, well, you're racist for even noticing any demographic change. I mean, that is sort of the ultimate unspoken standpoint, isn't it? But the simple fact is that nobody voted for Britain to become a white minority country in 40 to 50 years' time. And yet now that path seems absolutely inevitable.
Yeah, again, you're completely right that nobody ever voted for mass migration. You can see this in really most manifestos, but especially from 1997 onward, every single government has been elected on a promise to halt or reduce migrant flows. Every single time, again, the government has been elected to reduce or halt migrant flows. And every single time they've done the exact opposite of what the British people want them to do. I don't think that's very democratic at all. Doing literally exactly what you've been voted not to do. But yeah, so I will say again, the demographic change, I mean, just within my lifetime, I'm 28, 29 next month. I was born in 1996. When I was born, this country was a, 97% white country overall. Well, white British, of course. And then this change has happened again within my lifetime, within the last 30 years. So I've seen, this country change completely dramatically. But I don't think that this is an inevitable change, that Britain will become minority British. I don't think that this will happen. I do think that, we are on a path now towards, again, the fact that mass deportations has become a mainstream take here. The fact that literally, we have the leaders of reform talking about the Boris wave literally just the other day, and said that they would undo the damage that caused. A complete ban on ILR. I think we can see a time where this country can generally be, we might not be able to fix every single little problem that we have, but a move back towards normalcy, living in a normal country. And I do think, for example, a lot of people will leave if they think that this country will not be completely willing to bend down to every one of the wishes. As obviously one reform policy here is that welfare will be for British citizens only, and social housing will be for British citizens only. And I think for people who don't have that, which is a lot of people still, they would rather go back home. They would rather get out of this country, because The only reason they're here now is because it's easy. If, again, Theresa May said she wanted to make this country a hostile environment for illegal immigrants. You can make this country in that way a legitimate hostile environment, quote unquote, where you don't make it easy for them to be here. And then a lot of them, a very, very good chunk of them will go. You'll see, for example, people who are Pakistani posting on TikTok who are living in this country being like, oh, look at my house back home in Pakistan. It's a mansion. I've got servants, but I also live in this country. So these people will go. These people will go. This will not be, a problem overall. And so, yes, I'm very optimistic about the state of this country. I'm not depressed. I'm ready. As I said, I'm as Charlie Kirk was. I'm a happy warrior.
Jack, where can people find you and your work? I was told by our mutual friend that you've gone stratospheric in the last couple of years with your numbers and your popularity as an influencer.
Well, I mean, last few months actually, I've gone tripled my following numbers. I've got around 50-60 million views on Twitter or X, wow. Of course, as we call it. Just from
I've decided, by the way, on that point, interestingly enough, I've decided it is now called X, but I've decided that we should retain the verb to tweet. We all know what it means. Do you know what I mean? We all know that the platform is now called X, but we want to retain the verb to tweet. I tweeted about it. Have you seen that tweet, etc.? Both as a noun and as a verb. Why not? It's an addition to the language. Much less clumsy than saying I posted on X about that or whatever. So anyway, there you go. Do carry on.
Exactly. Or, I X posted. That's another one as well. Nobody's made that up yet, though. Coined here on the show. But yeah, so you can find me on X at Jack Hadders, and all my other links are available on my link tree, which you can find at jackhadfield.co.uk.
Jack, thank you so much for joining me today on Ascending Order here on Unprecedented TV, and I hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you for having me on.
There he goes. That's Jack Hadfield. Now, you may have noticed today for the first time, I've been flashing up things like this QR code. There you go. You can have it in full screen. That's because we are entirely self-funded here at Unprecedented TV, which at the moment means we're running on something of a shoestring. So if you are in a position to make any kind of donation, if you appreciate the work that we do, I think today's program with two highly contrasting but both extremely relevant guests has been, well, for my money anyway, far more interesting than you would find watching the BBC News at 1 or CNN or any of those other channels. I'm going to be here Monday to Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. every day on YouTube and on X. And before too long, I hope, at our very own unprecedented TV.com website. So keep an eye out for that. I'll make an announcement as and when that comes. But for now, it's me, Basil Valentine, saying, great to meet you if you're here for the first time. Do come back and see us again. And I'll see you all again at the same time tomorrow. Hello, I'm Basil Valentine, and this is Unprecedented TV, unfiltered, uncensored, unprecedented, the home of free speech here on the internet. Do please like and subscribe over at YouTube. Follow us on X, and remember, I'm on air every day, Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. for Ascending Order, your daily news edit, with live guests and all the genuinely most important stories from around the world. Don't allow yourself to be propagandized by the corporate media. Forget the world at 1 on Radio 4. Join me, Basil Valentine, instead, 1 p.m. on X, Monday to Friday, also on YouTube. And I'll see you all very soon.